Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. When we first start out on our speaking journey, we are very much involved with getting over our nerves and just getting up there and saying some words. Would you not say that's true? And then as we go along, we talk about structure, how to put things in. And we're starting to feel really comfortable with what we're doing. And then suddenly someone says, well, you need to make an emotional connection with your audience. You need to add some body language. You need to be using the non-verbals. And immediately, all the confidence that we had has just suddenly drained away. Because funnily enough, when someone says to us, you need to use body language, you need to move, you need to use your hands, you need to look at people, we forget everything we do when we're sitting there having a natural conversation with one or two people. Because if you sit in a coffee shop and watch people, like I like to do, they use their hands, their gestures are going, their facial expressions are alight, they're looking at each other intently. You can almost tell what's happening just by watching them. But for some peculiar reason, as soon as we say in your speaking journey, you need to add body language, eye contact, facial expressions, we end up like blocks of wood. We don't know what to do with these. We wring our hands. We look down. We look for divine intervention, and it's not going to come, even if it is Easter. So how do we add it? More importantly, I often get asked, why do I need to add any body language? Why do I need to look at people? Why do I need to have some facial expressions? Well, let's have a look at a little scenario. I was down at the supermarket the other day. I was pushing my trolley up and down the aisle. I went round one end and I hit this person. My groceries went one way, that person went the other, and everything happened on the ground. That was my afternoon. Now, wasn't that an absolutely scintillating tale? Weren't you completely involved? Weren't you completely involved? Did you enjoy it? You went to sleep? How could you possibly have gone to sleep? I gave you all the facts. I gave you the structure. I didn't show any nerves. What did I not add? Well, let's say we do the scenario a different way. I was at the supermarket the other day. I was pushing my trolley up and down the aisles. And then I went up one end of the aisle. I came round the aisle. I hit this person. He was that tall. He went that way. I went that way. My groceries were all on the floor. That was my exciting afternoon. Which did you like? My first one or the second one? Did anybody like the first one, apart from my helping Dave go to sleep? Who liked the second one? And why? Because there was action, because the non-verbals that I had, my facial expression, my eye contact with each of you, my gestures, they all added impact to a verbal message. And that's why we need to have body language. That's why when we say you need to make an emotional connection, we talk about body language adding value. So briefly, let's have a look at what is body language. I've given you a bit of a hint. Body language is everything you do with this body. It's eye contact you make with each person in your audience to see that they're part of what they're saying and to make sure they haven't fallen asleep. It's movement to punctuate, to make sure that they're keeping an eye on what you're saying. It's movement to emphasise a point. It's movement to say, you need to listen to me. And it's facial expression that adds impact to what you're saying. It's facial expression that adds credibility. And finally, it's your gestures. It's the gestures that give the word picture. For example, if I was to say, and I'm saying, that person was really tall. Now, tall can mean anything to a number of people. Now, take our area governor here. He's tall. Take Jonathan. He's tall. For a person to be tall to them, they've got to be almost touching the ceiling. Then you take people like myself and Annette, who are probably a little bit closer to the ground. Tall to us means anybody that's just about here. Now, if I don't use, as you saw, my body language, my gestures to tell you tall up here or tall here, I am leaving you guessing, what do I mean by tall? Does that make sense to you? By adding some gestures and indicating that height, this height, I am now helping you to understand what I mean by tall. And it's the same if I was to say, I went fishing the other day and I caught a fish this big. Okay, all right, it's Easter, it was about this big. But I am now giving you a visual to add impact to the words. Now, body language and gestures have a whole lot more that you can use to add to and enhance your message. What I've shared with you is just a little bit of a tip of the iceberg, some ideas that you can take away next time you do your presentations. Think about your eye contact, think about your facial expressions, think about where you're moving, and think about adding some simple gestures to indicate height, size, to add and enhance your message. Mr. Toastmaster.